Live and in charge on Friday. What's up, Judah Hoover?
Not much, man. I am in like the afterglow of my birthday. Had such a great, amazing day yesterday. Got lots of love here on our show. Got lots of Facebook love, lots of text love, lots of my 10-year-old son woke up this morning and made me eggs in a basket. Do you know what that is?
I'm not sure.
Cut a hole in a piece of toast, put it on the skillet, crack an egg in it. It's delicious.
Well, I always call this bullseyes, but whatever you call them, they're delicious.
Okay, great. Yeah, they're delicious. So, and they're a simple, easy meal for his birthday.
That's fantastic. Hey man, your connection's not so great here, so I'm gonna do the lead in here. Look, if this is your first time joining us, thanks for joining the Build and Grow Real Estate Show. Monday through Wednesday, we do some real estate training. Thursdays, we typically jump in with an interview. Yesterday, we had an awesome interview with Anthony Moore. That was my first time really talking to him in depth, and man, is he a great guy! Like, phenomenal dude. And then Fridays we jump into the news. That's what we're going to talk about today. Like, the housing news is darn near phenomenal, and I got to tell you. So, let me take a step back before we jump into the news. But my name's Josh Weidman. I
would say, who are you?
That's right. I've been in real estate investing for about 14 years. I bought my first property in December of 2006. I'm a hard money lender, so if you are watching this program, we lend in your location. We are a direct lender. Interestingly, I just got off the phone right before we jumped on the show with somebody who they were signed up with a lender. They were ready to go to closing, and all of a sudden the lender stopped communicating with the title company. And then it went from a couple days to a couple weeks, and now these people are like, "What the heck do we do?" I got a call from the wholesaler and then the borrower. And long story short, we're a direct lender, which means we've got funds available to deploy in our account, ready to move. If you need to fund your next project, give me a call. I can give you a loan approval the same day, and we can fund the loan once the title work's done. In some cases, we have funded on the exact same day that people have called us. It's a little bit of an exception to the rule. But if you need to fund your deal in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Northern Virginia, or D.C., my number is right there, 717-213-8488, or visit us online at hardmoneybankers.com. Judah, tell them who you are.
My name is Judah Hoover. I'm an executive with Slate House Group Property Management and a real estate agent. We are a modern real estate company. We really utilize technology to help people find the house of their dreams, sell the house of their dreams. Whether that is an investment property or whether that's your personal residence. One of the things that, a lot of realtors throw that term around there, the house of your dreams. I love telling people that I make the American dream come true, because even though the American dream is a nebulous term and it's one of those things that's hard to pin down exactly what the quote unquote American dream is.
Sure.
It usually involves some type of entrepreneurship and or home ownership. And I love that is essentially what we do, is make entrepreneurs out of people around home ownership and owning real estate. And that's what's great about America. You know, here's the cool thing, Josh. Do you know that the Guinness factory doesn't even own the land that it's on? It has a 10,000-year lease, but in the world over, private property ownership is a pretty rare thing. Yeah. You rent the land from the lords still in the rest of the world. They are the evolution of a feudal system that still has its rights there. So in America, the fact that you can own property, God bless America. Call Josh, call me. Let's make that happen for you.
Well, absolutely. It's funny you bring up London, or excuse me, you bring up the Guinness factory. When I got married, or when I got engaged, this is 20 years.
I thought you were going to say it's Friday, and I'm cracking one right now.
Not this Friday, maybe another one. But yeah, I mean, I got engaged in London, and it was right after September 11th. and my wife bought for my birthday 2 tickets to London. They were like incredibly cheap student discount, and I mean, it was awesome. It was a great trip. But one of the things that I took away from that is like you walk by these real estate offices, and it's like 100-year lease for this flat, 1,000-year lease. It's like, what? A 1,000-year lease? What the heck is that? But I mean, it's really true. Property rights and property rights is the fundamental underlying like pinning foundation of this country, and personal property in general. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, so it's cool.
It's why one of the things that, so I obviously have a lot of friends who are ultra conservative. Some of them even more ultra conservative than me, and they all say the same thing about property taxes. And they're like, oh, well, if we got to get rid of property taxes or else we don't really own the land. The government owns the land and we're just renting it from them, and the property tax is the lease. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, understand it's still 90% better than it is in 90% of the rest of the world. You know what I mean? Like, America's not a perfect nation by any stretch of the imagination. It's just the best nation that ever has been.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. We don't get to go into perfection until we pass away from this life, right?
Right. And I think amen, brother. Now you're preaching. So I think that also it's really cool to talk about that on Juneteenth, today's day, which celebrates the end of slavery, or not technically the end of slavery, but kind of, sort of. But yes, and I mean, let's not get into the weeds on that. Was a Texas holiday for a long time because of the racial sensitivities we're having as a nation. It's something that has really been like widely and quickly adopted. I know several people who have had to move several closings because banks are not doing settlements today. They're kind of sort of open. People kind of sort of have, half paid days today and other things like that. The Chris Bixatis Foundation here in Central PA has gotten a whole lot of donations recently. And, is that white guilt? Isn't that white guilt? What's the motivation? Is the motivation behind it really pure? And does it really matter if the motivation's not that pure, as long as these racial inequities are finally getting addressed? That's something that you have to figure out. But it's also a holiday that now looks like we're probably going to be celebrating moving forward, and that we need to recognize and talk about. And I think it's great that we're doing that in America. We're actually finally recognizing that holiday. I think that's a good thing.
I think that's a good thing too. And there's I've had all of the social unrest across the country has given me so many opportunities to talk to my kids about like this country and how it was founded, and why people are upset about different things and why they think one thing or the other. It's been really we've had some really amazing conversations. I mean, I lived in a much more diverse area before we moved to Central PA about a year ago. And my kids, like, it's funny not funny. It's interesting to hear them talk about friends and describe people. And I find that as the generations have changed, my parents and grandparents, their view on the world was significantly different, and on the racial dynamic in this country and whatever, significantly different than it is for me. And certainly significantly different than with my kids. When I hear them, like if somebody, if you're talking about somebody and I'm looking at a picture and there's a white guy, a black guy, and a Hispanic guy in the lineup, and you say, oh yeah, John Smith, and I'm like, is that the black guy right here?
Right.
When I talk to my kids and they have the same picture, they're going, is that the guy with the blue hat?
Right.
And I think that is such an enlightening thing to see, that it's just a cool thing, and I think it's important. It's a really important conversations to have. It's awesome.
Well, yeah. Here's a statement that's going to get me in a lot of trouble. Anybody who thinks that we're not a vastly, vastly improved country when it comes to racial issues didn't talk to their grandparents and doesn't talk to anybody under the age of 5. Like, if you grew up talking to your grandparents and you talk to anybody 10 years old or under, you've got to see the vast steps and amazing things we've done as a nation, and feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. So, all right.
Housing news, dude. What do you got on housing news for
Well,
us?
before we get to housing, look,
Okay.
every week I try to talk to my wife. We're in a world of news feeds, right? What I read every week and I'm studying and looking at is going to be completely different than what you see, and certainly what my wife is watching. So I asked her, what is the biggest news of the week? And there's some really, really big news. Apparently, on The Bachelor, there are 4 additional contestants this season, and that is the news of the week. Okay, and now we go into housing. That's pretty exciting news.
I mean,
that's pretty exciting news.
I'm more comfortable as a white guy discussing racial issues than I am discussing The Bachelor. I mean, just to give you a clue of where I think that conversation goes.
I know. Listen. I get it. I feel the same way. That's why we stream everything on our phones instead of watching TV anymore. So, anyway, housing news. Holy mackerel! Like, my phone's been ringing off the hook all week long. Every time I'm done with this show, I have 4 or 5 different messages that I've got to return. I wake up in the morning and my inbox is full of people contacting me for loans. And here's what the numbers are playing out. So first of all, forbearances are down, and for government housing, government-backed loans, they're significantly down. They're at 8.7% of active mortgages right now are in forbearance. We talked about this last week that a third of them are actually continuing to pay in that forbearance period. And I mean, it's really good news. You know, basically 57,000 people last week came out of forbearance, and we're about 160,000 below where we were at the height in May. So I mean, that's a good thing. All right. So in addition to that, when we break this out, what's very interesting is, like, although the federal backed loans are doing well, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those loans account for about 7% of all of the forbearances. FHA has, 6.8% of all of Fannie and Freddie's loans are in forbearance, and 12% of the FHA and VA loans are in forbearance. But the real thing to see here is that servicers are getting killed because of this forbearance. They are they're on the hook for $3.4 billion a month because of these unpaid loans. And I mean, that's a big deal. It's something to keep an eye on. We're trending down, which is a good thing, but it's not happening really fast.
Well, yeah, and you almost have to wonder whether we're going to throw a lifeline to servicing companies, or servicing companies got split out from large banks a while ago, then spun off and created independent entities. You almost have to wonder whether what we're going to see is JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo and Bank of America buying up these servicing companies and kind of reabsorbing them, or what's going to happen there. Or, hopefully, because of the uncertainty there with servicing, what doesn't happen is the government come in and get involved and say, servicing can't be separated from the loan anymore, or anything like that. So there's a number of things that could come down the pike. I'm hearing more and more people locking 30-year fixed mortgages under 3%.
We're going to talk about that. You're not going to believe the mortgage applications. They are insane. In fact, you know what? Let's jump in there. I mean, here's what's insane, right? 11-year high. Mortgage applications this week, 11-year high. Purchase apps are up 21%. They're 4%.
That's crazy.
You're 4% higher than last year at this exact same time. 4% higher. Refinances are 106%, up 106% year over year.
Well, that makes sense. So they're double what they were last year. And obviously, with interest rates, I heard somebody bemoaning a 5% interest rate. Like complaining that, oh my goodness, I just got this client of mine out of a 5% interest rate. Can you believe the shame that they had? And what 5% interest rate?
What's crazy is, as recently as last fall, I was talking to some of my turnkey investment clients, telling them that they could expect between 5.5% and 6.5% on a refi rate on a 30-year fixed investment loan.
Right.
And that was a reasonable number. I mean, what the heck is the world coming to? It's like free money out there, man.
Yeah. Well, that's what the other thing is. So I'm working with a guy right now, makes about $140, $150 a year, has about 120, 130 cash saved in the bank, lives down in the DC, Baltimore area, wants to buy here in central PA because the numbers do this little thing called make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to him about it, and he's like, so, I want to buy 1 or 2 properties cash. I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, well, yeah, that way I don't have a mortgage payment and everything I got. I'm like, buddy, like, money's free right now. When you consider the after taxable effect of what interest rates are right now, you should be getting a 30-year mortgage and putting as little down on it as possible. That should be your goal.
You keep the cash, and then if you want to pay that mortgage down faster, let your tenants' payments pay down the mortgage, pay extra on the thing. And you can turn a 30-year fixed into a 10-year loan without a heck of a lot of extra payments. A few extra $100 a month adds up over the course of a year, and over the course of time, like it wipes out your your investor, the principal really quickly.
Right, and what I always tell people to do is separate their equity and from the house, and then save it someplace. You can earn 3 to 5% very conservatively. Some people would say you can even earn up to 8% conservatively in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
Yeah,
it does not take much at all. A blue chip mutual fund with dividend and dividend reinvest, and you can very easily, and that's why the banks have the money in the first place. It's called arbitrage. You borrow from over here and lend out over there. It's what the banks do. Josh, all your hard money loans that you write, do those come from the Mr. and Mrs. Weidman Foundation? No, they come from investors who have given you guys money that you invest and go from there. All right, this is Chris says
the refinance rates on primaries are running about a half point higher than the purchase rate. And honestly, you can understand why the banks are doing that. I mean, it actually makes sense on a lender's point of view, where it's like, look, they've got a loan at 5% or 4.5%. Why do they want you? Like, why do they want you to lower interest rate? You know what I mean? If they can charge it, they're going to charge it. And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You got better insight on the lending side than that.
That's a refinance is inherently more risky than a purchase. And that's always been the way that it is.
Really?
So it's sometimes historically it's only a 1/4 of a point difference, but an 1/8 to a 1/4, you might be seeing a 0.5 point for a number of different reasons.
Okay. So I mean, look, we all know what I've read a couple conflicting articles about inventory right now. I mean, obviously we know the inventory is low. But I think that these higher prices and higher demand are starting to attract some eyeballs from people that have been a little uncertain of where the housing market was, right? I mean, like even in May, a month ago, late May, I think that people were looking at this and saying, okay, I wonder what's going to happen when everything's opened up. At least in Pennsylvania, right? And so I think what has happened here is we're watching this, we're seeing what the market looks like, and people that were on the fence are now saying, let's jump in, and let's start running. I mean, I talked to a client just this morning, and they did the same thing we did, and a lot of investors, a lot of people did. when the market started slowing down. They had 5 or 6 properties under contract ready to close for flips. And they kind of put a freeze on it because it's like, hey, what the heck's going to happen next? Now, as we see a lot more buyers entering the market, a lot more mortgage applications, a lot more people going after the few houses that are on the market, you've got more people entering the market for sale. And I think that's going to be a good thing to get a real baseline on where the housing market really is. I mean, it's really hard to look week over week and say, oh, how prices are up 10% or, whatever. Well, that's just this week. You know what I mean? Like I saw a post from an agent last night on Facebook listing all of the historic sales in all of these neighborhoods, like highest sale. This person bought the house for $150 4 years ago and just went under contract for $300,000. Like things like that over and over and over again. I think that I don't know. I just think that the market is starting to regularize itself. It's starting to flush itself out, and that's a good thing.
That's absolutely a good thing, dude. I'm sorry to interrupt. I've been busy. I've been driving. I should have started off the show with this. Please forgive me, dear listeners. Is that a Ron John shirt you're wearing, my friend?
I am loving Ron John. I love Ron John. So my wife's family has been going to LBI for the last 40 years.
Is this the 90s? Is this
Oh, dude, listen, I'm old school.
I just remember everyone right here cool in middle school unless you had a Ron John t-shirt.
The funny thing is, I'm a little bit behind the times. I didn't have a Ron John shirt in high school or middle school, whatever.
Right.
But I think right now our housing market is looking really good. The new housing starts, because we've had such tight inventory. It's so funny to me when I look at these new construction projects, right? In areas where you have really dynamic and responsive housing, you have builders that can respond to, oh, we have a lack of inventory. Let's jump in and start building, I mean, but then you've got areas like California and other areas that are really restrictive on their building laws and things like that. It can take a decade to start building a housing development in California if you can get it done. So, I mean, imagine trying to predict out what the housing market's going to look like in 10 years. I mean, It's insane. It's insane. But so new housing starts are only up 0.1%. Doesn't sound like much. But when you look at the new permit applications for single family homes, it's up 14.4% year over year, which would put us at an annual rate of about 122 million homes through the end of the year. I mean, that's pretty good. Like
new home constructions.
That's what I'm saying. That sounds really high, doesn't it?
That sounds really high.
I can't be right. 120. There's only 350 million families, that can't be right. All right, scratch that. I'm gonna get.
We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you, dear listeners, on Monday with a less Guinness infused answer on what's going on there.
Yeah. All right. All right. So then we've got what am I saying? Multifamily housing applications for new construction are up 15%. So
now applications is different than starts.
That's
so
right.
they track two different things. So the first thing that they track is how many applications are there to build. These are the first pool of the permit. And then the start is when they actually break ground. There can be a delay there, and just because they apply and get approved, which is just they apply doesn't mean they get approved, and just because they get approved doesn't mean that they start. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, new permanent applications are a real deal, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing where you have builders that are confident, and because they're putting in new permits to build these houses, guess what that's going to do? It's going to stimulate the economy. It's going to stimulate jobs, and that is a big deal. So Chris Gaines is a client and friend of mine. I threw his comment up here. Last Friday, he missed the show. We were Facebook messaging and talking a little bit, and one thing that he brought up to me, he's in the military. He's Chris, excuse me if I screw this up, but he's a contract officer. And so what he does is he works with independent contractors and oversees new contracts for federal contracts, right? Well, so Chris is telling me, he's like, there is a really big push for new federal new federal contracts, which looks to stimulate the economy. Not necessarily that it's done intentionally, but this is what's happening. There are a lot of new contracts that are being handed out to private businesses, which is going to stimulate the economy by bringing in new jobs. That has been a concern of mine since we've been talking about unemployment. It's really good news. The good news on these new housing starts, it's going to be more employment, and I think that's a good thing all the way around.
Well, yeah. The other thing is, Trump has been talking about it for a while. Like him, love him, hate him, whatever. About doing a meaningful infrastructure project.
Yep.
In the meaningful infrastructure bill with meaningful projects associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
The package size is about $1 trillion. What they're hoping to do is meaningful upgrades because, half the reason that the U.S. did so well after World War II is because we all of a sudden had an interstate highway system that we did not have before. And we also had the jet engine that we did not have before. It also helped that all the other factors around the world were bombed into oblivion. But those two things really helped us. So part of the boom that we saw during the Clinton years was because of the internet. Part of the bloom that we saw during the Reagan years was his tax cuts, and I have a son named after Solid Ron Reagan, so I'm not taking anything away from the man. But also the advent of the mainframe computer also helped Reagan.
I think the Cold War and the space race had a lot to do with it too. I mean,
sure, absolutely. But yes, absolutely. So both government spending and yes, the space race captured people's imagination and things like that. Anyway, the point is that Trump is looking to work with Democrats who historically like infrastructure projects because it gives their union buddies a lot of work, and they're looking at building out 5G networks and also building new roads and new bridges. The problem with a lot of the recent infrastructure projects that have happened over the last 20 years is they've been repainting of bridges, upkeep of bridges, taking care of bridges, and that really just maintains where we are. It doesn't really make us better. It's important to do because without it, a crumbling infrastructure is a bad thing, but you also have to be looking for doing the next thing. You know what I mean? So 5G could be that.
Well, I think that I got something else for you on that front, but I think that Obama did a good job pushing money into infrastructure maintenance because we were entering a real phase where local and state governments were taking infrastructure money and just losing it. I mean, They get lost in their budget. Oh, we'll do it next year. We'll do it next year. And with that push, I mean, I can remember there was a good period of time where I spent a lot of time on the turnpike going from central PA to Philadelphia back and forth. And I can remember driving down and thinking, man, Pennsylvania looks pretty beat. I mean, the bridges they just looked old and beat up. And I think was there a bridge there was one or two bridges that just fell apart while people were driving across them. I don't know if you remember that. This is several years ago. But I think that at least maintaining it was, I do think that that infrastructure investment will certainly help our economy, but it also, you're right, it's going to open up new windows of income, new economies that don't exist right now, as they're implemented. Chris chimed in here. One thing I forgot to mention, that he pointed out that a lot of these government contracts are requiring that goods are being manufactured in the U.S. as opposed to being outsourced. So you don't just have the money going to these government contractors. You also have the residual effects from the manufacturer, and that is huge. In addition, man, I am so in love with Elon Musk. Every time I turn around, he's doing something amazing. And just when you think that they put a man in space with SpaceX, it's incredible. I just was reading they have 30 days to implement their, what was it called? Starlink. Is that right? Okay. Starlink is a bunch of satellites that they launch into space, and it provides they're low-level satellites, and it provides internet access, wireless internet access to low-income people. The download speeds are about a gig a second, so they're pretty decent, fast internet. I mean, it's a cell phone, whatever, but it's designed. It's in conjunction. It's basically a race between a bunch of different companies to get this government contract, and it's like $16 billion. So, like, if he can show that this thing works, he's getting a huge chunk of that pushed into SpaceX over the next couple years. I mean, that's humongous. Like, that in itself is a game changer.
Dude, the future is going to be so awesome. I mean, we're seeing stuff happen. Dude, when we get off, dear listeners and Josh, when we get off this show, I remember in the mid 90s, AT&T had these commercials. They were voiced by Tom Selleck. I've always been an old soul. Don't make fun of me for knowing that they were Tom Selleck. But they were like, have you ever sent a fax from the beach? You will, and the company that'll bring it to you is AT&T. Well, guess what? With PDF technology and click to sign technology, that's what we do now. Have you ever paid a toll without slowing down? That's essentially what Easy Pass is. Like, go back and look at those commercials and see how many of them. Also, like, I watch Star Trek Next Generation with my kids because of like the life lessons and stuff like that. Sci-fi is a really good window to explore humanity through. And I'm like, guys, when this show came out, we didn't have cell phones, and we certainly didn't have smartphones. Like, the tricorder was dead sexy. Like, the fact that you could just like hit your button and talk to somebody, like, this came out in landline time. You know what I mean? There wasn't tablets where you read things or whatever. Like, there wasn't video calling. Like, they hail everybody and they're video calling. Like, you have to understand that
3 days to send somebody a letter.
What's that?
They took 3 days to send somebody a letter, and that's if they live close to you. I mean, email it's insane. It's insane.
So I think that what we're seeing with the technology bridges that are coming, I'm really, 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 really excited for what's going to happen. But also, I was talking with somebody about this just the other day. There's always going to be efficient markets. I always think real estate is going to be one of them. I, by and large, do not see the iBuyers taking over and pushing real estate investors and realtors out of the business. If they do, it will be in California and New York and Chicago. I think that we are 5 to 10 years at minimum away from, I mean, look at the car buying process. You could buy a Ford Mustang on the internet, and one Ford Mustang, one red 5.0 Ford Mustang is exactly like any other. But guess what? You still go to your local car dealership because you want to test drive it, you want to try it out, you want to blah, 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 blah. And housing is more different and more unique than cars.
There's one caveat to what you said. So I think that there is only room for two types of business in any market, and that is Nordstrom's and Walmart. The ones in the middle, it's a race to the bottom. That's what you got. You either have the boutique that is going to cater to all of your interests, make it a really great experience, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, or you got the other side that's as cheap as you can get it. Period. End of story. Right.
Price or advice is what I always say. You can either be price or you can be advice. And
honestly, if you are buying something from Nordstrom's, you're getting a quality product. And I kind of associate that working with a quality agent. Paying 6% to a quality agent is cheap because oftentimes they're going to price it better. You're going to get more money for the property. It's going to get more eyeballs and it's going to sell faster. Great. On the flip side, it depends on what happens with the real estate market. If we cannot get a hold of this unemployment, and I want to talk about that next. If we can't get a hold of this unemployment, all of this stuff's out the window. All of the development projects, all of the new housing starts, all this crap, it's going to be brakes on, and we are going to have years of tough economy. And if that's the case, I think that there is a window there for a Walmart in housing. And it might not be iBuyer, but I think it's going to be something more like a standardized platform, something like Zillow with a lot more features and a lot more interaction that allows people to sell houses themselves with the same type of protections that they would with an agent. Just certainly not because there's not going to be enough money to go around. That's kind of what my thought process is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would hate to accuse the government of making good choices. But if anybody could sell houses with their own internal abilities, it would be HUD, it would be Fannie Mae, and historically they list with local agents.
I can't believe I know what you mean. I can't believe you just said that. I don't think the government does anything well. Like, they cost more, they take more time, and like,
listen, blind squirrel, stopped clock, use whatever analogy you want. I'm just saying, if like when real estate investors say, I've got within myself the ability to sell this house without an agent,
I think that's silly.
I think to myself, if anybody could do that, it would be the federal government. They would say it's cheaper, it's better, it's whatever for us to do this internally, and we'll just have we'll hire our own brokerage, we'll do whatever, blah, blah, blah. But no, I mean, there's a reason why the federal government says, you know what, just hire a local REO agent and get it on the market, and they know how to do it better than we could.
That's fair. I mean, and you know what? Time will tell. I think things like blockchain and some of the quantum mechanical things that are coming out right now are going to be pretty important as far as technological pieces. I mean, blockchain, I think, could immediately change the way real estate transactions are done, underwriting's done, and title insurance and all that.
Title is the big thing, man. When it comes to real estate, we started off the show by talking about how great it is in America that you can own real estate. We're kind of wrapping up the show with the same thing. The fact that you can own real estate in America and people are messy and people do stupid things is why you need title insurance. Because just because I buy Josh's property from him doesn't mean that he didn't do a quit claim deed to his Aunt Sally and sell for right of first refusal to his second ex-wife and will the property to his son, irrevocably. I
can't tell you how much money I have lost as a wholesaler when I found great deals, had signed contracts, had great buyers in place, and the deal fell apart because the last buyer didn't get title insurance, and the owner, three people before that, has a mortgage from 1975 for $15,000 that was never released, and nobody can find the mortgage company because it was sold and sold and sold and sold and sold.
And it's probably satisfied. No one owns it. You're not ripping anybody off, but because the title company says I can't find him, therefore I'm not willing to.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, there are things like that title insurance is the cheapest insurance that you can buy if you're buying a huge asset like that. It's so smart. Do it. All right, let's go to unemployment, and then we'll wrap things up a little bit. So there's
1.5 million people.
Yeah, and so let's start with the good news. Or let's end with the good news. Right? We're Friday. We're going into the weekend. We'll end with the good news. So first of all, 1.508 million people filed initial claims last week. That brings the total amount of unemployment to over 20 million people. And these are insured unemployed, which means that they are getting a check. They are filing. They are people that we know about. They're not the underemployed. They're not the people that, just stop looking for jobs. These are people that are part of the unemployment system. Second, we're at 14.1%. Like, that's pretty staggering. That's a big number. And it's not like we're seeing major reductions. But this leads me into the good news. The good news is the 4-week moving average of new unemployment claims is down almost 25%. So that's encouraging. That's really encouraging. But the numbers are still so stinking high. The layoffs that are happening now are kind of surprising.
Still today, we're starting to open up. We're starting to get this economy moving. We're starting to make good stuff happen. Yeah, when I saw that number today of 1.5, it was like a punch in the gut because I'm an eternal optimist to a fault, problematically so. And that was
right. It's a real problem. The sliding 4-week average is at just over 1.75 million, and that's per week, which again, it's higher than 1.5, and that's down from 2.3 3-some million, right? So that's a good thing. Second of all, one thing that's coming up here is the loss of this unemployment settlement check. It's scheduled to expire at the end of July. I read something this week that some people that actually were called back to work still qualify for the extra $600. Now, yeah, it's really weird. But here's the big problem. Right now, in so many different sectors of the economy, the federal government is holding things up. It's keeping things afloat. It's providing extra liquidity. It's making sure that we don't have collapses. That's going to start to end. It's got to end at some point. We can't buttress the economy forever. The question is, when does it end? If it's going to end at the end of July, I think that'll probably get pushed back. And actually, one thing we're going to get to is foreclosures, federally backed loans that are in foreclosure. The start of foreclosure filings got pushed till the end of August. So I mean, there's all of this federal intrusion in the economy. It's got to end at some point, or we end up with just a socialist economy, or a maybe not socialist, but what's the word? It's
more like European socialism, more like what Britain and France and Germany have, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's problematic to say the least, right? So there's just a lot of uncertainty. Today was filled with a lot of good news. So I'm sorry to end on a downer note, but I think that we've got to see some improvement in unemployment, and it's got to happen pretty soon. We're in the third week of June. We got 10 days left in June, 11 days left in June. By mid-July, if we don't see some major improvements, this is going to be some really, really bad news for housing. I mean,
yeah, I would say that July 4th is like the middle of the nice weather.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you take the second half of spring, summer, and the first half of fall, and those are in Central PA. So yeah, we're already coming up on that. We kind of don't realize how deep into the year we are because we spent so much time inside for so long.
Yeah.
And the weather's been so nice. We haven't had blaring hot days. We forget that we really are in the third week of June here, and time is slipping.
Tomorrow's the first day of summer.
Right.
Father's Day is on Sunday. If you didn't get anything for your father, go get something. You got enough time here. Coincidentally, my kids and my wife thought it was Father's Day last Sunday, so I woke up to breakfast in bed and my kids giving me cards and all this stuff. And we go to the store and all the signs are like, don't forget Father's Day, June 21st. It was awesome. I get 2 this year. It's great.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. So anything else to pull in here before we get going?
No, man. I think I apologize to our listeners that I was patchy and I could hear everything you were saying, but I could tell that me responding there for a chunk in the middle would have only been problematic. But I think you did a great job leading us off here today. And I just had a scheduling conflict that I should have rearranged some things differently and just wasn't thinking about it. So I apologize to our listeners. This show is a commitment to me, and I hope that you didn't feel underwhelmed by my love and support for you guys, because I really do appreciate coming to you every day.
Judah, you're so sweet. Oh man. Yeah, man.
I'm trying to convince people I'm a badass. I'm not doing a very good job.
I don't care. I'm not paying attention now. Hey, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy this, the summer weather. Give your dad a hug. Get him a card. If you liked our show, if you enjoyed what you saw here, don't forget to like and share. We'll be back here Monday. We're going to dig into some of the marketing we discussed a couple weeks ago and really started going into some case studies on how to create marketing pieces, and some specifics on where you need to go for outlets and vendors and things like that. But anyway, hey, it's really great. Thanks for being here. Judah, thanks for a great week. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.